all the vows on our lips, the burdens in our hearts, the pent-up regrets about which we brooded and spoke through prayers without end on Last Atonement Day, did not change our way of life, did not bring deliverance in the year that has gone. For mountain peaks of fervor, we fell to common ways at the close of the fast. God, will you hear our regret? Will you open our prison, release us from the shackles of habit? Will you accept our prayers, forgive our wrongs, though we sin again and again? In moments of weakness, we do not remember promises of Atonement Day. Oh God, recall that we easily forget. Take only our heart's intent on this new year. God, forgive us, pardon us, grant us a year written in the book of life. Let us now rise as the ark is opened, as we begin the Kol Nidre prayer for this new year. We'll begin in just a moment, page 204. I'm reading now towards the bottom of page 204 on the left side. By the authority of the court on high and by the authority of this court below, with divine consent and with the consent of this congregation, we grant permission to pray with those who have transgressed.
Bishiva shel malach, Bishiva shel mata, al dat hamakom, ve'al dat hakahal, anu atirin, להתפלל עם העבריינים בישיבה של מעלה ושיבה של מטה על דעת המקום ועל דעת הקהל אנו מתירים להתפלל עם
Page 205.
כל נדרי ושרי וחרמי וקינמי וכינויי וכינוסי ושבועות
For the second reading of Kol Nidre, please join me in the English at the top of page 205. All vows, renunciations, bans, oaths, formulas of obligation, pledges, and promises that we vow or promise to ourselves and to God from this Yom Kippur to the next, may it approach us for good, we hereby retract. May they all be undone, repealed, canceled, voided, annulled, and regarded as neither valid nor binding. Our vows should not be considered vows. Our renunciation should not be considered renunciations. And our promises should not be considered promises. Kol Nidre, for the third time, page 205.
סלחנה לעוונם הזה, כגודל חסדך, וכאשר נשאת לעם הזה ממצרים ביד הנה, ושם נאמר, ויאמר אדוני, סלחתי מדבריך. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה, והגיענו לזמן
Baruch atah Adonai, our God, ruler of time and space, for granting us life, for sustaining us, and for bringing us to this moment. And let us all say, Amen. Please be seated. If you've seen the videos that we have sent out of 3 families that love this congregation, you'll know why we chose Ellen and Dan Trachtenberg. Ellen and Dan Trachtenberg are active members of our Houston Jewish community. They're driven by values and tradition. For well over a decade, Dan has delivered challah rolls and Shabbat gift boxes decorated by teen volunteers every Friday at MD Anderson Cancer Center. Ellen has focused much of her time in opening and growing the Houston Holocaust Museum, where she chaired its core permanent exhibit to effectively tell the historical events of the Holocaust. And throughout the year, Ellen and Dan bring their sons, Mark, David, and Barry, and their respective families home to our synagogue to tangibly demonstrate what is important to them, Beth Yeshurun. It is my honor this evening to call upon Dan Trachtenberg to address our congregation.
Wow, this is a little overwhelming. There are more people out here than there were in the little town I grew up in Seminole, Oklahoma. My parents and other people from the old country had a little wood frame house that was called the Hebrew Center, where we attended, and my sister and brother and my father would walk through the streets of this little town with everyone staring at us, wondering what we were all about. My mother had barely escaped getting out of Poland before the war, but her mother and her 2 sisters were murdered in the Warsaw Ghetto. So my mother kind of lost her faith, but I tell you, she would not miss Kol Nidre. It wasn't sung in the beautiful way we just heard, but it was sung, and she wouldn't miss it, ever. So I moved to Houston around 1970. I soon met and married my beautiful wife, Ellen. And so we were searching for a synagogue to join in this big city. And we went from one place to another, any place we could get in for free. And unfortunately, my brother passed away very early in his life. And my father was here visiting, and he wanted to find a place to say Kaddish. So we wandered into the chapel, and there was old Dave Kaminsky welcoming us, showing us what to do. Once we joined Ellen had her bat mitzvah here, an adult bat mitzvah that was extremely meaningful to her. And as the rabbi said, our 3 sons were bar mitzvahed here. They attended Beth Yeshurun schools. And my mother got to see that on this platform, and she would have been so proud of her great-grandchildren who were B'nai Mitzvah here. And so this was our early experience with Beth Yeshurun. As the rabbi mentioned, we originally developed a very strong relationship through the Jewish Federation. We participated in missions to Israel, the Soviet Jewry movement. We actually had a ping pong tournament here in support of that. Our sons twinned with children from the Soviet Union who couldn't have a bar mitzvah. So you can see that I love this place. We talk about coming into the sanctuary. In Judaism, a sanctuary is a sacred or holy place, the biblical tabernacle, next to the Holy of Holies in the great temple. But I got out my old Black's Law Dictionary to look at what sanctuary means there. And it said, in Old English law, a consecrated place which had certain privileges annexed to it and to which offenders were given a resort for refuge because they could not be arrested there. So you all can feel safe while you're here. And you can be here and forget about the crazy political world we live in now while you're here. We have this enjoyment of singing together, a world-class cantor, the rabbis who spend so much of their time thinking of what they can teach us to help us live our lives a better way, a Torah way, with spirituality. So I just want to charge everyone, especially those who come after us, the next generations, to keep this place going. We learned through the flood that when you lose something, you really understand what it means. So it's important for my children, my grandchildren, for your children, your grandchildren, that we keep this place going, that we keep the lights on so that we get the light. One of the things that I learned from these wonderful rabbis that we have is that you have to be of service. Be of service first to your family, then to the Jewish community, and then to the world. Tikkun Olam. Shana Tova Umituka.
Thank you, Dan. As I mentioned last week on Rosh Hashanah, since July 1st, we welcomed over 85 families to our congregational family. This week, we welcomed 12 more, bringing 97 new families to our congregation within the past 2.5 months. On a normal year, we sometimes welcome 15 or 20. But once the holidays are over, we have a lot of work to do to integrate our new families within the greater Beth Yeshurun community. It will help that we have an incredible year of programming ahead. We have all sorts of new service opportunities, social action projects, and other exciting events scheduled during this upcoming year. I want to make sure that all of our programs are done well, that we continue to set the standard for Jewish programming, worship services, and other synagogue activities, not just in the city, but in America. I need your help to continue the work. Your donation tonight can make a real difference in keeping Beth Yeshurun on top. Tonight is your opportunity to make sure we continue to have many families like the Trachtenbergs who become better people and better Jews because of Beth Yeshurun. If you've already given to our annual high appeal, thank you for your support. If you have not yet made a pledge, we ask you to join other members and friends and remit your donation tonight by folding down one of the tabs on your pledge cards. If you forgot to bring your pledge card tonight, there are some in your prayer books. And please, fold down a tab. Affix one of your name labels. There should be 3 name labels on your tickets. Take one of them, put that on the high appeal card, and a board member will come by to collect it from you. Let us now take just a moment to make our annual high appeal. Thank you for all you do to allow me to serve as a rabbi, to serve the Jewish people, to have an office, to have a sanctuary, to do what I can and my colleagues as well to help people every single day. Thank you on behalf of the entire congregation. We're now ready to begin the next section of our service, the Barg. Please rise, page 207. Baruch atah Adonai, our God, ruler of time and space. May your rule be with us forever and ever. Baruch atah Adonai, who brings each evening's dusk. You may be seated.
ומעביד יום, ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה. אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני. המריב ערבים
signature continues towards the top of page 208.
ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני. אוהב עמו ישראל.
Shema Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod Malachuto Leolam Amen. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
We now continue silently with the second and third paragraphs of the Shema, page 209.
Adonai Elohechem Amen.
We'll read responsively in the English at the bottom of page 209. Truly, this is our faithful affirmation, binding on us, that Adonai is our God, and there is none other, and we, Israel, are God's people. God redeems us from earthly rulers. Our sovereign delivers us from the hand of all tyrants. God performs wonders beyond understanding, marvels beyond all reckoning. God exalted us above all those who hated us, avenged us with miracles before Pharaoh, offered signs and wonders in the land of Egypt. As their pursuing enemies drowned in the depths, God's children beheld the power of the divine. Then Moses, Miriam, and the people Israel joyfully sang this song to you. Who is like Adonai among the mighty? Who is like you, adorned in holiness, revered in praise, working wonders? Mi chamocha.
ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ובני ישראל, לכנו שירה בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני. מי כמוך באלים אדוני. Adonai et Yaakov, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני. גאל ישראל.
We read responsively in the English on page 211. Allow us, Adonai, our God, to sleep peacefully and to waken again to life, our sovereign. Shield us, remove from us enemies and pestilence, sword, starvation, and sorrow. Remove the evil forces that surround us. Ensure our going and coming for life and peace now and forever.
ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ברוך אתה אדוני. הפורס סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים.
Please rise. I'm reading now in the middle of page 212. For on this day atonement shall be made to you to purify you from all your transgressions. In the presence of Adonai you shall be pure.
כי ביום הזה יכפר עליכם, לטהר אתכם מכל חטאותיכם לפני אדוני, כי יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבם, ילמד בחינותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל, בגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי נקודשה בריחו לעילה, לעילה, מכל מנחתה ושירתה.
We've now reached the first silent Amidah of this Yom Kippur. our opportunity to meditate, to communicate with our God. Page 213 through page 221.
As you conclude the Amidah, put your arms around each other and let's all join in Oseh Shalom. Oseh Shalom, Oseh Shalom Bivrocha,
peace in the heavens make peace for us, for all Israel, and may we all have a year of peace. And let us say, Amen. Please be seated. "19-year-old Michaela Sousa from California seemed to have it all. She was brilliant, informed, and at just 19, she was already giving sophisticated interviews to high society magazines. She established a very successful modeling career, partied at famous LA nightclubs, attended trendy art gallery openings in New York, doing it all while wearing the most expensive high-end designer clothing, always posting her never-ending once-in-a-lifetime adventures on her social media accounts with cleverly crafted captions. She had accumulated more than 1 million followers on social media. Most were millennials, ranging from ages 14 to 35. Followers who were exposed to her picture-perfect life every single day. She was so perfect, she seemed almost too good to be true. And that is why a few months ago she wrote in an Instagram post, "I'm not a human being, I'm actually a robot." Technically, she is a CGI, or a computer-generated image, created by a startup that specializes in artificial intelligence to be used by companies around the world to promote their high-end brands and products. What's even crazier is that since she revealed, or I should say, since her creators revealed, that she isn't an actual person, the number of young people following her has actually increased. Now there are hundreds, look it up, not tonight, but tomorrow night. There are hundreds of these computer-generated images on various social media platforms living their fake, perfect lives. If life wasn't hard enough for our young today, every day, they're viewing pictures of friends, classmates, and now, in 2018, even computer-generated images that seem to have it all. And this creates an incredible amount of pressure on many of our teens and young adults. We may not see it. We may not even realize it, but it's there. From middle school to high school to college to our young adults in their 20s and 30s. Yes, anxious people certainly existed before Instagram, but now many of them are following the filtered exploits of peers, and then maybe thinking to themselves, why don't I look as beautiful as someone else? Why does everyone else always seem to have so much fun? Why don't people want to see me on their timeline? In an age where our technology has the capacity to bring people together, there seems to be more disconnection and loneliness than ever, just at a time when our young need real-life connections with others. But the unique challenges our young people are under today doesn't end with the growth of social media. We all know that it's never been more competitive to get into a good college and to establish a well-paying career. In the hope that they will compete one day in the global village that is the 21st century, our young are expected to be as well-rounded as possible and to excel in a majority of their subjects. For too many, the biggest single stressor is that they never get to the point where they can say, I've done enough, and now I can stop. There's always one more activity, one more AP class, one more thing to do in order to get into a top college. The pressure is relentless. Too many of our young have a sense that they're not measuring up. When they get older, some of our own young adults are led to believe that they can begin at an income level that allows them to have it all, forgetting that their own parents began at a lower income and had to work very hard over many years to establish their careers. Some young adults have been raised to believe that they can only please their parents if they surpass their parents' already high level of achievement and success. They're part of a generation that has been conditioned to please their parents, their college admission officers, their first managers and supervisors, to please by demonstrating skills in areas that are sometimes simply beyond their God-given capabilities. All of these pressures that our young people are under today can become overwhelming. I often see the stress that they are under. I think too much for people their age. My friends, the results are alarming. In unprecedented numbers, young adults' self-reported levels of life satisfaction have plummeted, while rates of depressive illness have rocketed. Depressive symptoms in teenage girls increased by 50% in just the last 3 years, up 21% for teenage boys. 30% of teens today say they have been sad or depressed because of stress. The number of college students experiencing overwhelming anxiety has increased by 50%. So it should be of no surprise that according to the CDC, teen suicide rates are up 70% since 2006. 70%. In another alarming CDC report, 12% of Texas high school students attempted suicide last year. Unfortunately, suicide rates are up for people of all ages. For the first time in the history of our country, suicide rates are double the amount of murders in this country. But the rate for people between 15 and 24 years of age has tripled since the 1950s. Today, believe it or not, 1 in 12 young adults have made a suicide plan. Depression and stress from the challenges of our modern-day world are the #1 reasons for suicidal thoughts today. The sheer magnitude of the problem is shocking, and the trend is only growing worse. It's one that has also hit close to home. In just the last 3 years, in our Houston Jewish community, there have been more than a dozen young adult suicides. Of course, even one suicide in our community is one too many, but we've had more than 12 in just the past 3 years. The loss is incomprehensible, and whether it happened recently or years ago, we know that there are truly no words to bring consolation to their families. They were all wonderful people in their own beautiful and unique ways. I knew some of them. They all came from terrific families. It's no one's fault that they died by suicide. For those families that are with us tonight, please know that we are here for you always. And so is Jewish Family Service. They have grief support groups and trained counselors on staff who are there for you anytime you may want it. We do have a real crisis in our country today, one that is happening in our community. As a rabbi, my #1 responsibility is to help those in need. So this is an issue that I felt compelled to address on this all-important night. Raising awareness is the most important thing I can do in trying to help. By my words, even if I just help one person turn their life around, maybe even save a life, then it would have been more than worth it. So tonight I want to do something a little different. I want to speak directly to our precious young adults, our teens and those in their 20s and 30s that are with us. I want to give you some advice. Guidance that may be more important than ever before. Advice that perhaps we can all learn from, no matter our age. Over this past year, I finally read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. It's one of the most widely read books of all time, a book I recommend for all of us. Viktor Frankl was a widely respected Jewish psychiatrist who survived the concentration camps. In the camps, he used his God-given gifts to help others by dedicating himself to counseling. His counseling often worked by convincing hundreds of his fellow victims that no matter what the camp guards told them, their lives may not be finished. He gave them the will to live in the worst of circumstances. After the Holocaust, Frankl defined his life-saving work as logotherapy, a therapy that is based on the premise that our main motivation for living is our will to find meaning in life. Each of us, every single human being, has the freedom to find what that meaning is, even in the most difficult of circumstances. But Frankl insisted that the true meaning for our life's mission, come from outside the self. He would teach that the right question to ask ourselves, what does life want from me? Not, what do I want from life? Rather, what does life want from me? At the center of our core beliefs as Jews is the belief that there is an answer to this question for all of us, no matter who we are. We each have a unique mission on this earth that only we can fulfill. The great adventure that we call life is figuring out what that answer is, what our answer is. In the words of the Mishnah, there is no one who doesn't have their hour and no one who doesn't have their rightful place. Viktor Frankl's work has never been more relevant. Recently, a 25-year study was completed by the National Institute of Mental Health to assess happiness and what people felt most satisfied about. The study revealed that people who are the most satisfied with their lives were those who were living up to their own personal, unique, and distinctive possibilities. As it has been said many times, happiness is not about how much money you have. It's not about fame or popularity. Happiness is appreciating what you do and only you can do. Many of us who have been through those difficult young adult years now know the best way to be most satisfied with our lives is finding our unique purpose on this earth. That is why I want you, our young adults, to just live up to your promise. Just your promise. And here's the beauty of it all. In fulfilling your God-given mission, you don't have to be perfect. No matter what you may think, no matter what you may see on your phones, because no one is, no one can be. I know of a young man who grew up in the 1980s. As a ninth grader, he was not supported by a large group of friends. He had no real interests or passions, was not really good at anything at his large public high school, and he was lost, looking for some type of direction. Life wasn't easy. That young man was me. And we all know someone like that, like I was. So how did I wind up here on this pulpit as one of your rabbis? A friend encouraged me to go to a BBYO event. It was there that I learned I simply could be my imperfect self. And there I began to find a purpose I believed in that gave me the strength to become the person I am today, to become a rabbi. It was in BBYO and later in Hillel at the University of Texas that I began to appreciate the talents God did give me, instead of criticizing myself for what I could not do. As I began to learn more about our tradition, I quickly realized that many of our biblical ancestors were also far from perfect. Abraham almost sacrificed his son Isaac and later banished his son Ishmael. Jacob was a deceiver. Moses was an absent father. King David, I don't even know where to start. There's a reason God gave us a Hebrew Bible that is so full of flawed personalities. It's not just in our tradition. Failures and shortcomings occur time and again throughout history. Abraham Lincoln suffered from depression. JFK had numerous extramarital affairs. Babe Ruth held records for strikeouts as a hitter. And for many years, he was known as the king of strikeouts. J.J. Watt? Well, actually, J.J. Watt is perfect. He's the one exception. But for everyone else, we're all imperfect, and that's okay. We are limited, fallible, vulnerable, but still worthy of love. We can fail, but we still belong. God loves us and believes in us despite and sometimes because of our imperfections. Our weaknesses make us human. Our imperfections can teach us that we can ask for help, and when necessary, we can also be forgiven, especially on a night like this one. We will pray for teshuvah many times over the next 24 hours. Teshuvah can be translated as repentance, but it's also about returning to our true selves. That's the hope of this holiest of all days for us as Jews. Through more fasting, more prayer, and more reflection than any other day of the year, the goal is that we can find and return to our inner God-given cores that are far from perfect, but are still exceptional, are still precious, and are still invaluable. This realization allowed me to appreciate even the more the blessings God did give me, even though I was, still am, and will always be very far from being perfect. If you ever heard me try to sing, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And that's more than okay. As the Kotzker Rebbe once said, perfection is the enemy of the good. I think about that quote a lot. If you try to be perfect, or if you think you are perfect, then it's very hard to be good. To all of our young adults, if you don't feel so great right now about your career or your financial situation, or if you're still in school and you're not succeeding in all your classes, or if you're not the prettiest, the most athletic, or the most popular, I certainly wasn't either. But you know what I've learned? It doesn't matter at all. You can still bring your own original perspective, insights, and talents to life in a combination that no one on this planet can produce. I know your families would agree with me. Each one of you can add something irreplaceable to the world. If you think you're just too different than everyone else, don't let that get you down. Instead, embrace what makes you unique. Ben Platt recognized this value in his acceptance speech at the Tony Awards for winning Best Actor for his role in Dear Evan Hansen. I love what he said. Don't waste any time trying to be anyone but yourself, because the things that make you strange are the things that make you powerful. No matter where you are in your life right now, or no matter how bad life may seem at the moment, I experienced firsthand, and as Viktor Frankl reminded us, you can still make a positive difference in this world. Don't ever lose hope, because it's a fact. God created you for a reason. Unfortunately, too many of the images that come from Hollywood and advertising and on your social media feeds will tell you if you don't have the perfect abilities, if you don't have the perfect look, if you don't have the perfect body, then you're close to worthless, and you'll never be happy. You'll often see these messages that you can only be happy if you have it all and can do it all. Please don't ever believe any of this. Instead, keep in mind, the people who you want to surround yourself with, the true friends that you will make, the spouse you will choose one day, they will love you for exactly who you are. If they don't, then they're not the right person for you. And don't choose a career just because you can make a lot of money doing it, or just because it is one that you think will impress others. Choose a career that best suits you. One that you're not only good at, but you enjoy so much that it will ignite your passions. As the author Anna Quindlen has written, if your success is not on your own terms, if it looks good to the world but does not feel good in your heart, it's not success at all. Again, be yourself. The Torah commands us, Lo tishachaveh lahem. Don't worship false gods. Don't ever worship the false gods of perfection. Remembering this eternal Jewish belief can help you walk with your head up high, full of self-confidence and self-assurance for only what you can do. Yes, we, your parents, your grandparents, all of us, we want you to be here as part of our families in our community. We want you for exactly the way God made you. We love you for exactly the way you are turning out. I know. We all know. You can have such an incredible life full of so many blessings, answering the question only you can answer for yourself. What does life want from me? To all of our young, this is my advice for you tonight. The advice I hope you'll always remember. Gamar Chatima Tova. May we all be inscribed for a year of health, happiness, and peace, especially our precious young. Now, I want everyone who feels they need it to leave with something tonight. In my sermon, I focused on young adults, but unfortunately, suicide rates are near record levels in our country today, with increases seen across age, gender, race, and ethnicity. That is why we are providing these Jewish Family Service resources in our prayer books. Thank you to JFS and their director, Linda Berger, for their help in providing these handouts. They can help any of us, no matter our age. If you know of a person in need, in your families or in our community, here are some resources you can use to get them some help, to possibly save a life. I want to point out just one thing. We will be hosting here at Beth Yeshurun 2 mental health first aid courses. One, for you to be trained to help an adult that's in need, and one to help you help a youth that is in need. In this course will help you understand the risk factors and warning signs for mental health concerns, strategies for helping someone in crisis, and where they can turn for help. Thank you, everyone. And we're now ready to return to our prayer books. We begin the confessional section of our prayers. The first time we'll have an opportunity to confess to God for all our imperfections, for all the mistakes that we made in this past year. We rise, page 223.
Zichronenu me'erev
mi boker ve'yiraeh hadratenu mi boker ya'aleh dovkeinu me'erev ve'yavo gileinu mi boker bakashateinu ad arev ya'aleh enekateinu me'erev ve'yavo eilecha mi boker ve'yiraeh eileinu ad arev
You may be seated. The soul is yours, the body is your creation. Have compassion on your handiwork. The cantor continues, the top of page 225.
Shama וחנון, ערך אפיים ורב חסד באמת, נוצר חסד לאלפים, נושא עוון ופשע וחטא סלח לנו אבינו כי חטאנו מחלנו מלכנו כי פשענו כי אתה טוב וסלח ורב חסד לכל קוראיך כי אתה אדוני טוב וסלח ורב חסד
In a moment, we will ask God to hear our prayers, to be kind and have compassion for us, to willingly and lovingly accept our prayers. But before we can ask God to listen to our prayers, perhaps God has questions for us, questions only God could ask. On this holy day, I believe God is not asking what kind of car you drive, but is asking how many people you drove who didn't have transportation. God is not asking about the fancy clothes you have in your closet, but is asking how many of those clothes help the needy. God is not asking about how many material possessions you have, but is asking if they dictated your life. God is not asking about your social status. God doesn't care, but is asking what kind of class you displayed. God is not asking what your highest salary was, but is asking if you compromised your character to obtain that salary. God is not asking how much overtime you worked, but is asking if you worked overtime for your family and your loved ones. And God is not asking what you did to protect your rights, but is asking what you did to protect the rights of others. Shema Kolenu, page 233. Please rise.
Shema Hashivenu תשליכנו. אל תשליכנו.
You may be seated. We continue on the top of page 234. Our God and God of our ancestors, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement. Ki anu amecha.
כי אנו עמך, ואתה אלוהינו, אנו בניך ואתה אבינו, אנו עבדיך, ואתה אדוננו, אנו קהלך ואתה חלקנו, אנו נחלתך, ואתה גורלנו, אנו צונך, ואתה רוענו, אנו חמך, ואתה נוטרנו, אנו פולתך, ואתה יוצרנו, אנו רעייתך, ואתה דודנו, אנו סגולתך, ואתה קרובנו, אנו עמך, ואתה מלכנו, אנו מאמירך, ואתה מאמירנו. אנו עזיפנים, ואתה רחום וחנון, אנו כשיורף, ואתה ערך אפיים, אנו מלא עוון, ואתה מלא רחמים, אנו ימינו כצל עובר, ואתה הוא שנותיך לא איתנו. אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואימותינו, תבוא לפניך תפילתנו, ואל תתעלם מתחינתנו. שאין אנחנו עזיפנים, וכשיעורף לומר לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואימותינו. צדיקים אנחנו ולא חטאנו, אבל אנחנו ואבותינו ואימותינו חטאנו.
We read in the English at the bottom of the page, we are insolent, you are gracious and compassionate. We are obstinate, you are patient. We are sinful, you are merciful. Our days are a passing shadow, but you are the one who truly is for time without end. Our God and God of our ancestors, hear our prayer. Do not ignore our plea. Our God and God of our ancestors, we are neither so insolent nor so obstinate as to claim in your presence that we are righteous without sin, for we, like our ancestors who came before us, have sinned. We rise for the confessional, Ashamnu, page 234. We continue now with the long-form confession, Al Chet Shechatanu, page 237.
Al Chet Shechatanu lefanecha. Al Chet Shechatanu lefanecha beyetzer hara. ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך, ביודעים ובלא יודעים, ועל כולם אלוה סליחות, סלח לנו, מחל לנו, כפר לנו, כולם אלוה סליחות, סלח לנו, מחל לנו, סלח לנו, מחל לנו, כפר לנו. על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בכחש ובכזב, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בעיניים רמות, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בעזות מצח, ועל כולם אלוה הסליחות, סלח לנו, מחל לנו, כפר לנו, על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בפריקתו. על חטא שחטאנו לפניך בתשומת יד, ועל חטא שחטאנו לפניך בתימון לבב, והגולה אלוה סליחות, סלח לנו, מחל לנו, כפר לנו.
Please remain standing now as we turn to page 243, Avinu Malkeinu.
Avinu Malkeinu,
Atanu lefanecha, Avinu Malkeinu,
Avinu Malkeinu, achazrenu b'tshuva shlema lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, sholach refuah shlema lechol yamecha. Avinu Malkeinu, zochrenu b'zikaron tov lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, kotvenu b'sefer chayim tovim. Avinu Malkeinu, kotvenu b'sefer geula v'yeshua. Avinu Malkeinu, kotvenu b'sefer parnasa v'chalkala. Avinu Malkeinu, kotvenu b'sefer zechuyot. Avinu Malkeinu, kotvenu b'sefer selicha u'mechila. Let's join together, page 244, 4 lines from the top. Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu Vaneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu Vaneinu, Ki ein banu ma'asim, aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed, aseh imanu, tzedakah v'chesed, v'hoshienu.
And you may be seated. We turn to page 245.
Yitgadal ve'yitahadash ve'ramba ve'alma di'verachidutem ve'amlich malchutei v'chayechon ve'yamechon v'chayei lechol beit Yisrael ma'agala u'mizman kavim ve'imeru amen yehesh me'rava mevarach le'alam olamei olayam barach ve'yishalach ve'yitpa'ar ve'yitlomar ve'yitnasei ve'yitnadar ve'yitaleh ve'yithalal ve'yekun shabrichu le'ela le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata la'amiram be'alma tushbechata v'nechemata אמירה ועלמא ואימרו אמן קבל צלותינו ואותו לכל ישראל תודה מבהון דיבישמיה 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 ואימרו אמן ישמר אבה משמיה וחיים עלינו עלינו ויה כל ישראל ויה כל ישראל ואימרו ושלום הוא יעשה שלום עלינו עלינו ועל כל ישראל
Please rise for the Elenu, page 246.
Shana Tova, everybody. You remember what happened a few years ago? I tried to show you how to bow correctly and when to bow when we do Aleinu. Well, some of you got it, but quite a few forgot what I told you. So we're going to try and remind you again, and I'm going to ask Rabbi Strauss to come and join me. If you don't watch me, then watch him. So, when we get to Va'anachnu, I want you to say to yourself, Va'anachnu, do nothing. Okay, let's try that. Va'anachnu, do nothing. Now, Korim, bend your knees forward. Korim, bend your knees forward. Umishtachavim, bow down. Umishtachavim, bow down, right? Umodim, lifnei melech, come up. Okay? So let's try it again. Va'anachnu, do. Korim, bend your knees. Umishtachavim, bow down. Umodim, lifnei melech, come up. Do we all got it now? Okay, let's give it a shot. Here we go. Aleinu leshabeach ladon hakol, laten gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoyei ha'aratzot, velo samanu kemishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamona, va'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malkei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu shehu notei shamayim veyosef haaretz umoshav yekaro b'shamayim ima'ar ushchinatu zor begorei meromim hu Eloheinu einod emet malkeinu efes unato kakatu betorato ve'adat hayom b'hashevota elevavecha ki Adonai hu ha'Elohim b'shamayim ima'ar ve'al haaretz mitachat einod v'ne'ema v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz v'yom ha'hu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo
Now Now we invite all those in mourning and all those observing Yahrzeit to remain standing for the words of the Mourner's Kaddish, page 247. Yitzgadal v'yikadash shemei rabbah, v'yalma divrach yiruteh v'yalmik malchuteh, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayeh dekol beit Yisrael, v'agalav v'zman kari v'yemru, amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach le'olam u'mei maya. Yitzbarak v'yishtabak v'yitbar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudusha b'richu, leila leila, minkol berchata v'shirata, tishbechata v'nechemata, damiram v'yama v'yemru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chalim aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'yemru, amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'yemru, amen. And you may be seated.
Good evening, Shana Tova. I just want to make a special announcement tonight. We have a very special brochure produced by our publicity chair, our publicity person, Ashley Mills. She produced this beautiful new brochure of our adult learning programs here at Beth Yeshurun. They're not in the pews. They're on the table on the hallway as you leave the building. They're in the lobby as you leave the building. But you can also download the entire catalog from our website or view it online. There's a lot of wonderful new education programs we have this year. The Tanakh, we are the people of the book. The Tanakh is our book. And Rabbi Strauss is going to have a special Torah study program Tuesday mornings at breakfast after chapel service with a special breakfast. We also have a special distance learning program with Hebrew College, including videos, online text studies, and we'll be meeting at my house to review everything on Thursday evenings. Several other exciting programs mentioned in the book, and one other idea is a Siddur GPS. So if you're having trouble negotiating, traveling through the Siddur, you're getting lost somewhere, Siddur GPS is for you. About twice a month, we'll be meeting here on Shabbat mornings for about an hour from 9 to 10. And you have a guide through the prayer book. You'll understand more about the prayers. I hope you'll partake of some of the exciting new programs in education here at Beth Yeshurun this year. Please either pick up a booklet or download it from our website.
Thank you, Rabbi Morgan, and the books can be found on a table as you leave this evening. Those of us here in Houston know the devastating effects of a hurricane. So we think of people right now in North Carolina and South Carolina, all those areas that have been devastated by Hurricane Florence. Right now we know of 3 synagogues so far in North Carolina that have been greatly affected by the hurricane. I ask you to give back to a community. I have to tell you, last year it was so heartwarming to receive packages of gift cards and donations from congregations throughout this country and really throughout the world. So I ask you this evening to consider helping in 2 ways. Consider after Yom Kippur to go to the Jewish Federation's website and make a monetary donation to help those communities in North Carolina. Or beginning on Thursday, we at Beth Yeshurun will be collecting gift cards from Target or Lowe's or Home Depot or any store you think someone could use who's had their home flooded or had their home destroyed by this hurricane. Please, if you'd like, buy a gift card, bring it by the synagogue, and when we collect those gift cards, we'll mail it to the Jewish communities in North Carolina. Tomorrow morning, we have many new exciting programs. We have our new preschool service for all of our young ones at 9:30 to 10. We have a new grade school family service beginning at 10:45 to noon. We have a new teen service that will start at 11:30 a.m. We know they like to sleep a little longer. And that service will end at 1 p.m., and that'll be a great service led by our youth advisor, Sarah Goldberg, and our visiting rabbinical student, Kevin Lefkowitz. For those of you in our Barg sanctuary, we'll begin at 9:30 a.m., and I hope you'll consider staying all day. I know very few synagogues where over 1,000 people every Yom Kippur literally stay all day. I invite you to join us. After Yizkor, we'll have a beautiful Musaf service, some of those important prayers of our holy day. Shelley Davidoff will be this year's Holocaust speaker, and she'll speak about the experience her father Saul went through in the Holocaust. As Rabbi Morgan does every year, He'll introduce 2 incredible converts who will speak about why they chose Judaism. At 4:30 p.m., we'll have our annual Mincha service led by our teens. We have some wonderful teen speakers. We have Dylan Kessler who will speak about his experience at our day school. We have Harvey Gibbs who will speak about his experiences in Kila High. And we have Jaden Grossen who will speak about her experience in Israel this past summer. Rabbi Fort will then deliver her sermon, and we'll begin Ne'ilah at 6:30 p.m. And then we'll have children gather for our candlelight procession at 7:15, and then Havdalah and the final blast of the shofar at 7:47 p.m. I promise not a minute late. So I hope all of you will join us tomorrow. I look forward to seeing all of you. And on behalf of all of us at Congregation Beth Yeshurun, I wish you a Gamar Chatima Tova. May we all be written for a good, sweet new year. Adon Olam, page 175.
Adon Olam asher malach בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא וחפצו אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה והוא אחד ואין שני להמשילו להכבירה בלי ראשית בלי תכלית אלוה העוז והמצרא והוא אלי וחי גואלי וצור חבלי ביצרה והוא ניסי ומנוסי ונטוסי ביום אקרא בידו אבקיד רוחי בעת תישן בעירה ועם רוחי גבייתי אדוני לי ולא
Good evening, everyone.